Hey, hi, this is Sandeep, and in this tutorial I'm gonna explain you something about bind variable and a little bit about view criterias, and basically how do we set the values of the bind variables programmatically. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. So here I have created department EO and VO. Just I'm taking only one VO into example for this. Okay, so what we have under department VO we have already seen in the previous tutorials. For example, here it is. Now let's say, okay, I want to have a bind variable created here. Okay, so let's go ahead and create. First of all, we need to modify the query, and if you say that I just want those I just want those department whose department ID is greater than or equal to some bind variable. Okay, so this is our bind variable. So now that we have defined the bind variable inside the query, we need to define the actual bind variable, and we can go ahead with that here. Okay, you can just define here, and it is going to be a number. Basically, I am defining this department ID as number because this is going to be compared to the department ID, and department ID in turn is a number. Okay, so that's why I am defining this also as a number. So now remember, there is a required checkbox here. You need to check it if your bind variable is present in the query. Okay, in the where clause, as we are seeing in the where clause it is present, so it is required, it is checked as required. Okay, so I'll click OK. And one thing more, see, I have created this department ID over here, right? Now you can actually run it and check it whether it is working fine or not. So if you click it, it will ask you about what is the value of that bind variable that we provided. So if we say 50 and click OK, then as you see, it is coming up to the 50, that is department ID greater than. So you can scroll through all the department IDs which are greater than 50. Okay, so it's working fine. Now I'm gonna go ahead and declare a view criteria for it. Okay, view criteria is something basically that will be appended to the where clause in here. Okay, so first of all let's see this bind variable what we have defined here, right? This is present. I told you that this is present over here in the query. That is the reason that you are marking it as required over here. And even if you go to the source and check the department ID, its kind is defined as where. Okay, so if you basically check this required, that means that tells the EDF that it is there in the where clause, and that's why its kind is where. Okay, so you need to make sure that you always check this required box when your bind variable is present in the where clause of it. Okay, so now I'll delete this bind variable. Sorry. So I've removed the bind variable. Now I'm going to define a view criteria over it. Okay, so view criteria can be defined by going over here. I will say department ID criteria. So basically the where condition that we are going to specify here is going to append to this query. Okay, so that's all about what is all about view criteria. So I'm going to say add item. It will add one department, it will add one item. Okay, you select this item, come over here. Now you can say you can filter the view VO based on any one of these. Okay, so let's say I say that I want to have the department name. I want to filter the view based on the department name, and I want to say that display that department name where it contains somewhat like IT, or let's say a bind variable itself. Okay, we'll define a new bind variable here. So we will say the name as it is comparing department name. We'll say department name. Okay, you notice over here that it is not checked by default, and you actually need not check it because this bind variable department name is going to be part of the view criteria, right? So if you click OK, it will be applied. See, our view criteria has been defined over here. Its name is department ID view criteria, and whatever bind variable that we defined under this is appearing over here, department name. And you can also go to the properties by clicking edit mode here, and as you see, it is not checked over here. It is not checked because this department name bind variable is not present in the where clause of this query. If it is present, only then that required box is supposed to be checked. Also, if you see in the source, the department name, okay, its kind is showing as view criteria. That is because of the fact, because it is not checked. If you check it, okay, and if you again go over here, you will see its kind has become where. So basically this required will tell you whether it's a whether the kind is a where or a view criteria, but we know that this bind variable is a part of this view criteria, right? So we are not gonna check it. So basically when you check it, when you check the required box, if you will only check it only when the bind variable is appearing in the where clause of it and is not the part of a view criteria, okay, and you will leave this unselected only when the bind variable is not the part of the query in the where clause and that bind variable is a part of view criteria. Okay, so we have defined our view criteria over here. Now we can go ahead and run this. Okay, 1 minute. Yeah, so as you see here, you can scroll through all of the records, and if you want to apply the view criteria that we defined, you need to click over here. You can go inside this view criteria and it is available over here. Just shuttle it so it is selected and just say fine. Okay, as you say fine, it will ask you that there was a department name bind variable defined under this view criteria. So what's the value for it? I will say IT, so it's gonna display all the records which have the department name containing as IT. So scroll, as you say here also there is IT present, right? So that's why it is giving me this. Okay, scroll here also, it's IT is present over here. Okay, IT support, IT help desk, right? Here also IT is present, so it displays like that. So that's all about the view criteria and how the bind variables are designed. Okay, now I'll just delete all these stuffs to show you something more. Let's just delete this also. Okay, now you have your query ready. Okay, now suppose what happens, you want to simply iterate through it, but programmatically. Up to now what we were doing, we were just running it over here and it will actually display all of the records in the model tester. Now what we want to run and iterate through each of the records, but programmatically. So I will say, I will define that we need to actually define some method, right? So I will define that method in application module. Okay, I will say Java class edit generate, and it's gonna generate me this Java class. It has generated over here. Go inside this and we need to write a method over here to iterate. Okay, so I will say here is our method. Okay, and what it does, its name is this, iterate by where condition. I will add the where condition also later. So it will just take the find view object. It will say find view object, this one. Okay, it will get this view object. Basically this is derived from here, this name whatever you write here. Okay, this is the instance name of the view, not the view name exactly. You will not write department's view. Okay, you will write what is the instance name for it, and instances will appear over here. So as you see, instance for department view is department view 1. So that's why I've written department view 1 over here. Now you'll simply execute it, and then I have written execute statement 2 times, so I will simply remove 1, and you will say while department view has next, get me the row next. Okay, and under this row you can get whatever attribute you want. Okay, you can get department name also by saying department name over here and then casting it to the string. Okay, I will just display department IDs, all of the department IDs. Okay, so let's go ahead quickly and run this. Let's see whether it is working fine or not. So it's working fine. Oh, sorry, I ran the model tester. I don't need to actually run this. What I will do, I have written this method, so I need to run this method. Sorry, I need to run this method. So I'll go to the app module, I need to first expose that method. So how will I expose? I'll go to the client interface, and then I will say this method is available right now. I'll shuttle it across to, and then it will come under the selected. I'll say OK. So now it has been exposed. So just save and run it. So now when it appears, you need to double click on this, and here is your method. Okay, now you just say execute this method. Oops, it says number cannot be cast to java.long. Okay, actually I need to get this number imported, okay, properly. So make sure that you import the number from here. Okay, this is the number that is actually required, or probably not this one. As I can recall, it will be this API domain over here. Yeah, this number. So now I think it will be fine. We'll run it. As you see over here, double click it and then execute. It says success. Now go to the console and see what has come up. As you can see, these all department IDs have been displayed from 10 through 270. Okay, so it's working fine. Now we'll close this. Now there is a twist. Twist is, now probably we would sometimes want to add some where condition programmatically, though the query remain like this over here, but we want to add some where condition. So we can do that. Actually we can say department VO dot set where clause. Okay, so here in the string you need to provide the where condition. So I can say that provide me, probably I will like to have only those department name. I'll say set where clause as where department name is not null. Okay, so I am sorry. See, if you see over here, manager ID is somewhere null and these department ID. So I cannot say department ID is not null because everything is not null basically. So what I will say department ID. Let's filter on department ID itself. You can filter anything that you want. I'm just showing you a simple example. I will say just greater than 50. Okay, so let's do this. Let's say greater than equal to 50. Okay, now if you run this, execute, it says success. If you go over the results, you will find now everything above than 50 has been executed, right? So this means our this thing setWhereClause has set the where clause, and even if you see the runtime query, it will be appearing somewhere over here. Okay, so if you see this, it says where department ID is greater than equal to 50, so it has appended this statement after here. Okay, so basically you need to, what the basic thing you need to remember is that whatever is appearing over here, right, setWhereClause is going to append setWhereClause. Even if you have some where clause here, then it won't touch those existing one. It will just append this one as AND condition. Okay, and we can actually check it. We can say let's say here I want to have manager, I want to have only those I'll just add some where clause into it, is not null. Okay, so I'll say that filter this view, okay, where manager ID is not null. So if you see the data, manager ID is null for all the employees from here. Okay, so we have not null records only from 10 to 110. Okay, now I will say this, I will apply over here. So now this view itself is going to return those records where manager ID is not null. Okay, and those department IDs are from 10 to 110 only. Okay, now if you come over here, if I say that boss, I want to have this where condition as well and just append this one additionally over to that. So what will happen, it will first try to filter all of these out, it will be left with these records, and then after that I will say setWhereClause department ID is greater than equal to 50. So this statement is just going to add this line as an end condition after this line. Okay, so if you take both of them and combine them with the help of AND condition, you will say that records from here to here are eligible to be displayed from 50 to 110. Okay, so let's run this and verify if it is working the way I have explained or not. Double click it, execute, success. If you see over here, department ID is from 50 to 110 only, and even if you see the runtime query over here, okay, as you see the where condition where department manager ID is not null, this statement is coming from the view only that we define, particularly this one. Okay, this is coming from the view that we define, and this one is coming from the program. Okay, so that's how it goes. Now one thing more, after that, after let's say you have executed this, okay, and again if you say something else, again if you want to add something, okay, if you say department ID greater than equal to 60 or 80, let's say, what will happen is that firstly it will say setWhereClause this one, after that it will execute the query, it will get the record from 50 to 110. Again if you say that I'm going to set the where clause again, so this thing is not again going to be added as an AND condition after this. Okay, what it will do, it will basically reset the setWhereClause, okay, whatever has been set programmatically only. So this will say, boss, just have this condition, have whatever you have already defined in view, and reset everything what has been applied programmatically, remove this, okay, and have this one. So after this, if you execute here, so the final query, firstly it will make 50, firstly it will append the 50 in that condition and it will execute. After that, when you say setWhereClause 80, okay, so now this statement will remove this one, the previously whatever conditions you have set with the setWhereClause programmatically, not from here. Programmatically all conditions that have been set have been will be removed, and this will be set. Okay, so let's run this and verify. Double click it, execute. Now you'll see from 80 to 110, and even if you see the runtime query, this condition comes from the view itself and this condition comes from program. So this has been removed, as you see. So setWhereClause, whenever you say setWhereClause, it will set the where clause from a new starting point basically. Okay, now there are, what you can do, you can actually, if you want to clear, if you at this stage, if you want to clear this where clause, okay, you can simply say null over here. So what it will do, firstly maybe it will try to it will actually append this one to the previous condition, whatever is appearing over here. It will say this and department ID is greater than equal to 50. After that it will execute, and after that I'll say setWhereClause as null. So this will basically remove all the where clauses which have been set programmatically only. So here it will remove this one. It is not going to remove any where clause that has been set in here. Okay, so this is going to remain like this. What will happen? It will just remove this one. Again I'll say execute query, and then again I am iterating. So now this time what should happen? I should actually get all the records which have manager ID as not null. Okay, just run this, double click it and execute. So now if you see from 50 to 110, that is to say, I am sorry, if you go to the data over here, it is from 260 110. Okay, fine. Yep, I just reran it after refreshing. So what has happened over here, it has iterated from 10 to 110 as expected, and even if you see the runtime statement, it says department where, and the where condition is only that much which has been inherited or which has been supplied over here from the view itself. Manager ID is not null. This where condition has been gone. So this is how you can clear the where condition, but only those which have been set programmatically. Okay, now I'll explain you how to send bind variables. Let's define one bind variable over here. Let's say I want only those department IDs which are greater than or equal to some variable. Okay, some bind variable. So I will have to define here bind variable, this one, and as I said it will be required because it is appearing in the SQL where clause. So now that we have defined, now we want to run this VO by supplying the value of department ID programmatically. So how we can do that? We can come over here and we can say, we can remove all this stuff which is not needed right now. We will say department VO dot set name where clause param. Okay, so it takes a string and object. So you can define that for this bind variable, what is the value? You need to supply the value in object form. So I will say, let's say 50. Okay, so what it's gonna do, it's gonna supply this 50 value to this department ID, so the query will become department ID greater than equal to 50 finally, and it will iterate all the records which are greater than 50. Let's run it. Double click, execute. It's a success, and as you see over here, all the department IDs greater than 50 have been displayed over here. Okay, and as you see over here also, it generates this runtime query which says department ID is greater than equal to this bind variable that we provided, and just below this, binding param department ID 50, that is, it is binding 50, the value of 50 to this bind variable as we supplied over here in the program. So it is working fine. Okay, now let's say that you want to define one more bind variable over here. Okay, you want to say that I want only those department name which are like, or which have IT in that name. Okay, so already you have supplied one value over here, right? Apart from that, you need to define one more bind variable, and that too programmatically. See, this bind variable we define over here. Okay, and from the program we just supplied the value. Apart from this, or additional, besides this, you can additionally supply more or define more bind variable and then supply their value. So how we can do that? Let's just see that. So first we need to define where clause. Okay, because in the where clause only we will supply the new bind variable, right? So I will say I want to have department name here, like, and what it is going to be like, I will say new bind var. Okay, so this is our new bind variable. So now what will happen, it will first supply this value to this bind variable. After that, it will set where clause, so it will set this query in the where clause as an AND condition after this. Okay, and now that it has appended this query, it has appended this clause to the where clause, now we need to supply this bind variable. So firstly we need to define this bind variable because this was not already defined, right? So this is the way to define a bind variable. over here you can supply this name. It's gonna be arguments. These arguments are gonna be null. So this is how we define. So now that we have defined also our new bind variable, now we need to supply its value. So we need to supply its value the same named set named. So I'm gonna say set this bind variable as what IT. Okay, so now even if you see the data, it will first filter all those departments which are greater than or equal to 50, and after that it will filter again based on where the department name is having IT in it, right? So after the 50, if you see, there is IT over here, there is IT over I have removed this manage, right? Yes. So there are a lot of times where there is IT. We will just run this and we'll see the output. That's how we can know quickly. So I've set this bind variable over here. Now I'm gonna run it. Execute. It's a success. If you see, these are the only department IDs which is meeting this condition, and even if you go to the data 140 160, see 140 here it is IT present over here and the department ID is greater than 50, and 160 also it is IT present over here and department ID is greater than 50, and one more 260, that is the last IT is present over here and it is greater than 260. It is not picking this because I have applied a small int, so it's a case sensitive like search. So as you can see, I have added one more bind variable programmatically and supplied its value. So that's how we supply the values. That's how we create new bind variables on the fly and then supply their values. Okay. And now let's say after doing all these stuffs, right, you want to actually you want to remove all these things and again re-execute the query. See, you have executed over here, right? After displaying all the results and doing all the stuff, suppose there is some other business logic that you again need to perform on this view. Okay, so already you have set these where conditions and all these variables, right? So it's a safe side that you better remove all these first. So how you can remove, I've already explained with the help of these methods. Okay, so you need to just carry out like this. Here, so just call these two methods, set where clause, it will set the where clause, it will remove all the things, and it will reset the where clause params which have been set programmatically. Okay, so just reset, and after that again you can go ahead and define new where clauses, new bind variables, and supply their values, and then again re-execute the query, do whatever you want. So I hope this tutorial explains you well how to deal with the bind variables.